Hello. Welcome to another in the series, Let the People Speak. This is October 1990. In Austin, Texas, it's only 95 degrees outside, but fall is coming, and we're going to be talking about the Austin Women's Peace House, a wonderful place here in Austin on East 1st Street.
1305.
1305. I asked our guest, Bashira, who's the coordinator and director, because I wasn't sure that it was East 1st, but it is. And she's going to be telling us about the activities that are coming up, the specific things, and we're going to be talking just a little bit about what the Austin Women's Peace House philosophy is and what they have to offer to us in the community. So let me say a good welcome to Bashira. Hi.
Trella.
I'm glad you came. First, let's talk a little bit about what we did last week. We're going to be putting on some programs sponsored by the Austin Women's Peace House, and one that we did last week was what you call the first dialogue.
Yes, they called the 90s an Agenda for Change, Women-Led Dialogues. And I came up with that title and purpose of having dialogues instead of the usual type of speaker who talks for half an hour, 45 minutes, and then has question and answers, an effort to get people another kind of dynamic in which the audience participates, or we have a panel participating, and we get more ideas exchanged.
Well, this first dialogue that we'll be showing soon on Let the People Speak was with women in the media. Why did you choose that?
Well, the title of it was The College, the Community, and Communications. And it just so happened that a couple of the panelists, well, three of the panelists were in the media as well as involved with the college and the community, because it's the University of Texas plays a large role in the Austin, and there's been a lot of criticism by different communities about it, and communications, of course, is kind of like a middleman and can help or hinder that process, and I thought it would serve as a good opening to create that kind of dynamic and bring up issues that aren't too often talked about.
Okay, just so we can plug our wonderful work and let people know what's coming up. Who are the panelists? And tell us a little bit about them so we can be looking for that show.
Okay, Maria Rocha is the president of AFSCME, which is the city and I believe state employees union. I know it's a city union employees. And she also works for the city of Austin with the electric utility in terms of helping people who can't afford to pay for their utilities to get assistance. And she was very charming. I had actually seen her on TV a little bit about a week before that for the first time. And she's very poised and dynamic and very concerned. And she works in the community. She was the only person who wasn't actively participating in communications media and definitely represented the community. Then we had Kathy Revilla, who is the editor of La Prensa, which is the Latin community newspaper. And we had Olive Graham, who is a KUT producer. And she's in communications, and KUT comes out of the university. And our student member is also in communications. Her name was Gaina Krettel, and she's a PhD student at the university. She works 40 hours a week. She has 3 children, and she does a weekly interview show for KZI.
Wait a minute, what is her show on KZI?
Oh my God.
It's,
I've forgotten the exact name, but it's a 15-minute interview show that comes on during the 2-hour Sunday afternoon from 12 to 2. They have 2 hours straight of interview, talk show, current events.
Okay, so she goes out and interviews people in the community for KZI.
Right.
And then we had, sort of as a guest comment, the editor of the Polemicist, which is the progressive newspaper at UT, talking about a few of the problems he ran into, and then a woman who's a graduate student in the English department's talking about what they're doing.
Yeah, and then her name is Kathy, I've forgotten her last name, but they formed an organization called the Howlers.
The Howlers.
Yeah, and they're going to be having their first meeting at the Peace House. They want to serve and work in the community, and I don't know exactly how they've defined it or if they're in the process of defining it, but they called up to have their first meeting at the Peace House next week. and to try to enable to be in the community and hopefully to get input from people in the community who work in the community.
Okay. Now, the Austin Women's Peace House, then, we've already told you one thing. We videotaped this community college communications dialogue, the first dialogue. It will be shown on Let the People Speak soon. But there's an awful lot of things that go out of there. And you were talking earlier a little bit about them. You yourself are a performance artist, a dance artist. Right. Tell us a little bit about what you do in that field.
Well, I'm a dancer. I'm also a writer, which a lot of people don't know. But as a dancer, I've been teaching dance. This is like I'll say my third term of teaching dance in Austin. I started in 1989. Yeah, the spring of 1989, I had my first for 5 months at Meshikarte, and I worked with very little children, 3 to 6 year olds. Then I had another term in the late fall, going to the winter of this year, but I broke my ankle, and I was working at the rec centers. So, and the problem, I was trying actually at that time to make a little bit of money, and which was rather difficult because sometimes the people would come, sometimes they wouldn't. And then I also had the problem of getting students. So last spring, though, at the Peace House, I started an after-school program, which was housed totally at the Peace House, and which is not big enough for dance classes. And since I feel most competent teaching dance, I'm not a artsy craftsy person. So I talked to the person, Lori Renteria, who's the coordinator of Martin Community School, and I was able to get space there so we could offer free dance classes, because everything that is sponsored by or comes out of the Peace House is given free of charge.
Well, that's wonderful.
And that's based upon a philosophy called the gift economy, created by Genevieve Vaughn, who's the founder of the Foundation for Compassionate Society, which funds the Peace House.
Okay, now wait a minute. You're giving us so much information. Now hold on, folks. We get these people full of energy. Let me start over. Talk now about your dance, and then we'll get into the philosophy. Okay,
well, the dance class is, we have 2 classes on Monday and Wednesday from 4 to 5:30 at Martin Community School, which is located on Haskell and Chalmers, which is, well, Haskell and Chalmers come to the Chalmers entrance. If people are interested, they can call the Peace House at 474-0730 and get information.
Okay, and they would sign up. This is for children, and then they go to the school where you actually have the class.
Right. Well, they can sign up at the school. Okay. I can give them, if they need directions, they can sign up at the school. And I'll probably continue to take children through this month, because we're aiming to do a performance, and after we'll need at least a good 6 weeks of rehearsal. So if anyone will come in in November, they'd be coming out. And we're taking children ages 4 to 16. Most of the children are actually 5 to 10 years old that I've gotten right now. I'd like to get a few more older children. I have a couple of 11-year-old children. And we have a drummer who plays the Congo drums named Terry Leach from Atlanta. And he's also helps me out in the class, because I should be teaching the class now, and he's working with them now with gymnastics and tumbling, which we're going to incorporate into the class and into the choreography. And we've got young boys in the class who are a lot of fun. And it's the first time I've had more than just one boy in my class. I had about 3 or 4.
So you have young women and young men, and they're from all the cultural diversity that we have in this community.
Right. We've got quite a few come from the community, and then I've got some coming from Northeast Austin. Not too many from the west side yet, but most of them from the east side, south and north and central of the east side.
Because one of the purposes of the Peace House is to celebrate our diversity, to deal with racism and sexism. That's part of the philosophy, right?
Right.
So you want to make this available to everybody.
Yes, and we've advertised in all the papers hitting different communities. I advertised in the Princeton, Nicoa, and the Chronicle, and have sent out PSAs to the radio stations. And we're having a show. We will be having a bi-monthly or bi-weekly show on KAZI.
Does that mean every 2 weeks?
Right.
Thank
That's
you.
what I'm trying to say. And called The Quest for a Compassionate World. And that will serve two purposes. One, to present organizations that are doing things to make the world a better place, and also to publicize the Peace House.
Okay. Now we got it that you yourself are a performer and a dance performer, and you teach the dance class, and you're very interested in bringing the cultural events to children and people from all cultural backgrounds. How did the Peace House start? You were giving us that information when I said, whoa. And tell us a little bit about this philosophy. It's funded by the Foundation for a Compassionate Society. What is that?
Okay. Well, start at the beginning. Before the foundation existed, there was a group of women who used a house on Hartford Street, near where Genevieve Vaughn lives, the founder of all of this, who would come together and talk about peace. I guess they came together for tea and coffees, tea and cookies, or coffee and cookies, is what I gather from the beginning. And at some point, because I actually have not sat down and got the whole history, but at some point they decided to have a house, which they call the Austin Women's Peace House. And it's expanded phenomenally from just having these little coffee, cookie discussions to being a house in which there were speakers, classes for women, and a lot of support activities for mothers, and some activities for children. They had, the history that I know of for sure is from 1987, when I saw the first calendar of events. And they had a full range. They had quite a few writing workshops taught by different female writers. They had a women's self-defense class. They had mother support group. They even had a sewing circle and a quilting at one time. They had film and videotape showings and different types of support groups, self-help groups, a spirituality group, and different major events. The 1987 International Women's Day, all of the activities were held at the Austin Women's Peace House. And I actually saw part of that on the video. It was pretty impressive. It was, and it was actually more than one day of activities that they had then. And they had different people come and speak. They had someone speak about the Big Mountain. They had a Women in AIDS play there, disarmament discussions, different activities like this. And that first house, though, was on the west side.
On West 6th Street.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I arrived in Austin, I became introduced to the Peace House about March of '88. And that was through Dottie Curry, who was facilitating a group for women of color dealing with internalized racism. And at that time, I had no concept of what internalized racism meant, and it kind of had a negative. I received it in a kind of negative way. But I was invited twice. They had the meeting one month, and then they invited me a second time. And since I was new to Austin, I decided, well, I'll check it out. And actually, it was a very interesting and dynamic group of primarily African-American women by the time I went the second time. And what ended up happening is, by default, the Peace House closed about 2 or 3 months after that to make a move. And when they made the move, I said, well, I invited people to come to my apartment to meet because I didn't have a car. It was being too altruistic.
You still don't. You ride that bike everywhere.
But, and through that invitation, I ended up being the facilitator of what became the International Women of Color Support Group. And that was one of the activities. That group was started by the Peace House to get more women of color involved in the activities, because most of the activities on the west side were predominantly white women who lived on the west side. There seems to be this big barrier in Austin that everybody knows
that the
about.
developers helped create.
And so the move to the east side was again to increase the participation of brown and black women in the Peace House. And it's really taken us almost 1.5 years to start to get that really happening on a consistent basis.
So you moved to East first just last year.
Right. It was, it seems so much longer than that.
Maybe it was.
It was, no, it was 88. We moved in the fall of 88.
Okay.
Right, it's the fall of 88 we moved to the Peace House. But it wasn't really until this spring. There were a couple of support groups for Latin and Spanish-speaking women at the Peace House in the initial stages that it moved to the east side. There was Clínica Partiras for Spanish-speaking women, a midwife clinic, but it was conducted by an Anglo woman named Linda Miller. And then there was another support group led by a Spanish-speaking woman for Spanish-speaking women who were dealing with alcoholism or drugs within their households, called Latinas Unidas. But both of those, a lot of the groups, what happens at the Peace House is a constantly, and what's nice about it, it's a constantly flow of different groups, different support groups, different organizations coming and going. Some stay, but a lot go and evolve, either to other places or sometimes they fall apart, like the International Women's Support Group kind of dissipated. If people don't take, the idea of the Peace House is to develop women, to empower women through women's leadership. And sometimes that's a struggle, because a lot of women still will allow one person to take charge and they won't, contribute. And that one person gets burned out and the organization or the support group is gone.
Okay, back to the philosophy then. If a person watching this, a woman, and this is, the focus is on women and their children, and do men use the facilities also?
We've opened the house to, not to men groups, but to groups which include men. So we have some, like for instance, the Casa Marinella board meets at the Peace House. We have some organizations that have men in them that meet at the Peace House. And when we have public events, men are always welcome, men, women, and children. We've started, there's a new organization, Women for Racial and Economic Equality, READ, which is a national organization. It's a national women's organization, but they are openly seeking male participation. And they're meeting at the Peace House. And we're trying to also get more of men participating, particularly in that organization, because they particularly are seeking men to join.
Well, you want men who adhere to the principles of feminism and equality, men who are working against sexism and for change.
Right. And that's what Angela, because Angela Davis was one of the founders of RE, and that was what she stressed, that there's a need for men who are conscious, or married to conscious women, or dating conscious women, to start to assist, because it's necessary at a certain point where other men are going to have to educate and uplift and correct other men. Because a lot of men who tend to be sexist, they're not going to listen to a woman no matter what she says. Whereas they may get moved by another man. And again, though, it's always women's leadership. RE is still a woman's organization, and it's women's leadership. And the same thing at the Peace House. Men can participate, but we're not going to allow. And anybody, actually any man who comes into a place called Women's Peace House, they pretty much know.
They've already been trained and struggle with, haven't they?
That this is not a place where I've never even had the experience, or we haven't had any problem with any man coming over in any kind of way trying to disrespect or take over on any level. So
the principles of feminism, peace, justice, but what is this about the gift? Why is everything free? I know it costs money to run that place.
It does. It doesn't cost, the biggest cost actually is the rent. We actually are able to maintain and run the facility very inexpensively. But Genevieve Vaughn developed a philosophy called the gift economy, which kind of has come out of, her basic premise is based upon the nurturing nature of mothers, which is something that is done free of charge. And that mothers give naturally, and you don't charge your babies and your children or even your husbands or your mates in the giving. And she explains this as developing a gift economy as opposed to the exchange economy, in which people just do things to get something back. And the Peace House, particularly because it's a community center, everything that's sponsored by or held in the Peace House is free of charge. And sometimes you know, some people have ideas and they want to sell and things. I say, no, you can't do that in the Peace House. And I think it's really good because, particularly because of the community we're located in, for people to have a place like the house, because the house is set up like a house. We have a nice, comfortable living room, a nice kitchen, a play area set up for children. So it has a nice, warm, comfortable, relaxing, homey atmosphere, which people can come in and relax and have meetings or receptions or whatever they want to have and feel peaceful and happy and enjoy themselves. And for it to be free is really unique, because most of the places that are free are either the libraries or maybe the churches, which usually don't have that really comfortable, warm atmosphere where you can just sit back and recline.
Take your shoes off, put your feet up.
And if you want to, you can prepare some food and cook food, because we have a working stove and refrigerator, which people are free if they want to prepare food.
That's really nice. And it also helps break down that the isolation that we have as individuals, that we really are here on planet Earth trying to build community. And if you take from the bounty, you give back too. It's like a flow, and you don't want to take too much.
Right.
And it's a nice sense of giving what you have, and that everything we have is important, whether it's our time, or we're people who sweep, or we run the camera, or we dance, or we make the music, or we mail out brochures. It's all the same thing.
Right. Before I forget, we have a new person working with the Peace House named Patty Salas. She's a midwife who's just returned from El Paso. She's a young woman who's going to be doing a lot of health-related projects, health education, and she's going to be working with teenagers, particularly teenage girls, in terms of education and making them aware that you can have children naturally and aware of the responsibilities. And I'm really excited because she used to live across the street from the Peace House, and she said she didn't even know what it was. But she was living there, and she's known in the community, which will help to increase the community involvement. Since I'm not real, even though I live in the community now, I'm not born and raised there, and I don't speak Spanish that well at all. And she's Spanish speaking and from the community, and so that would really help to enhance participation by the community.
So how do you get the word out about all the programs that you do? Like you advertise in NACOA, you advertise in La Prensa, you advertise in the Chronicle, you have flyers. If people want to know, well, what all's going on, say in the month of October, what do? They can call you.
They can call.
They can check the paper. Maybe you could tell us some of the stuff you have.
Well, basically, they should call the Peace House because advertising is very expensive. Like I said, we have a limited budget, which is nice. And what I have found is that the advertising was good, but most of the calls we got were actually in relation to our video class, and they came from the Chronicle, those inquiries. But one thing leads to another. Through NACOA, I was on this television show, which was aired at 6:30 in the morning, but still it was more people.
6:30 Sunday morning. This is establishment media. Put her on at 6:30 Sunday morning, and only 2 people saw it.
And but it's a kind of a trickle-down effect that people are starting to hear about the Peace House. We're also listed, actually being listed in the Yellow Pages and in the phone book. I get calls from people new to town.
As the what?
It's Austin Women's Peace House.
Austin Women's Peace House.
I think they have us listed under social service agencies.
All right. Well, you are.
And people call, especially new people. I had a call today from a woman who did see the ad in the Chronicle about the dialogues. And what I'm doing as people call, I'm creating a new mailing list of people who call, and as I do new calendars, because we basically had a calendar for September through December. But I didn't include all the dialogues. So each time I do a flyer for the dialogues, I'll send out a mailing that way. And we just give out the flyers and word of mouth. The same thing with the children's program. It's been most successful through the flyers for the children's program.
Okay, well, what specific things you have coming up that we can talk about quickly as we run out of time?
Okay, October 14th, we're having our second dialogue at the Peace House at 4 p.m. in which Hazel Obie, who's a board member of the Rainbow Coalition, is going to give us a report from the Rainbow of what their last national meeting was and what their current agenda is, I suppose, for the next 2 years. And we have ongoing parenting classes for women, which are being taught by Ninfa Gonzalez, who's a Sanchez elementary teacher, which are open. And her goal is to develop a community among women, among mothers. And she's having a little bit of a difficult time getting the mothers to come because they seem to be rather isolated. But she's continuing, we're continuing, hopefully with Patty we'll even start to get that bridge closer. And we have video classes which are also ongoing with Fern Hill.
And they're free? You can come learn video?
Right, an 8mm camera. We have an 8mm camera, monitor, and editing equipment will be accessible at some point. We had the editing and we're getting new equipment. And those
you mean
are the
a woman,
main ongoing projects.
Wait a minute. A woman can call up and say, I want to learn how to do video, and Deborah Hill is the instructor, and come over, and you all have classes, you let them use the camera, they can develop a program and they can edit it there, and it's all free of charge.
Correct. And this class has been going on for over a year, and it's been one of the most consistent and one of the most successful classes. And the way she's operating now, it's almost private classes, because she teaches at ACC, and her schedule has been kind of changed around so that people are getting almost private classes.
Yes, and she's a wonderful instructor. I had the honor of teaching her class at Austin Community College last week. The introduction to radio, television, and film. I think I shocked them a lot, but they seem to like it. And Deborah Hill is a wonderful instructor. We have 8mm cameras over there, editing equipment. We teach you how to do it, and then you can come over here to ACTV and take classes from them and put out your point of view and really network with other women who are interested in television. It's great.
Right. Her group produced the videotape on the Gay and Lesbian March. They've produced the tape on the March 24th Bishop Romero March. Specifically, those are the two major projects that have come out of her class.
Oh, wonderful. The people who took the class did that.
Right.
All right. Okay, so coming out through the year, we said a few things happening in October, November, December. What's coming up? Just
in November, we're having another dialogue planned, which is going to be an international forum, which I haven't decided the panelists, but we're going to be discussing the commonalities of women's struggles throughout the world. And in December, we're going to have a unique type of early December Christmas bazaar, in which we're going to deal with artists who are particularly politically, socially, or spiritually conscious in their work. And we're going to do videotaped interviews of the artists, which will be running throughout the day. At least this is the plan, to have these videotaped interviews. And then, have their works, they're available for sale, and we should have some performances by one or two artists. And somewhere towards just before Christmas, we will be having a performance by the children.
Oh, that's
probably
nice.
At Martin Community School. That hasn't been quite decided on. And we have the classes ongoing. And then there's the groups we have meeting. One of the groups that I can publicize, because some of the groups who meet at the Peace House are closed groups.
I see.
But one of the groups that is open, and it's the first African American group we've had meeting on a regular basis, is the Texas Fine Literary Society. And Cynthia Edwards is the facilitator for that group, and they meet definitely one Saturday a month in the afternoon, the first Saturday of the month in the afternoon. And if anyone's interested in that organization, they can call the Peace House, again, 474-0730, and I would give them her number, because I don't have it.
And that's African American
women?
Texas,
yes, it's not just, this is one of the organizations which has men in it, and it's called the Texas Fine Literary Society.
Texas Fine Literary Society,
yes.
Very good.
And they've been in existence for a few years, and they were looking for a place, and Cynthia called, and we were able to accommodate her.
Okay. And one other thing I know that you had over there that we might just mention, because we like to plug all this good work that's for peace and justice and change. You had a retreat sort of like an urban retreat for a few days for New Bridges, one of the groups that works against the isms. Tell us about that, because we want you to know what's available through the Austin Women's Peace House.
Well, that was a rare occasion because it was in the summer that we didn't have anything going on at all. And actually what that was their training session for trainers.
Oh.
So what they were doing, if not many people know, New Bridges is a workshop and a concept developed by actually 3 people in California to help people recognize and acknowledge and overcome their prejudices, or quote, quote, the isms: sexism, racism, anti-Semitism, and classism, adultism. And
all the isms we don't like.
And what they're trying to do now is expand their base, and that's what they were doing by the training session that they had in Austin with, I think it was under 10 people who were trained, and they've already started giving trainings in the Austin area.
So basically, those of you listening to us and talking with us and talking to somebody else about what we're talking about by Imagine, they would just call you and talk to you about what they individually might be interested in creating out of the Peace House, or what their group might want to do, or what activities you already sponsored that they might want to plug into.
Right. We actually still have a couple of nights of the week which can be scheduled for use, and during the daytime we've got lots of time. We have only one mother support group now at the Peace House, meeting from 10 till 12 on Fridays, and I think they're a pretty filled group right now. But if someone wants, we had other mothers groups, but either their children got too big or they choose to move on to someplace else. But we are open for any type of activity in which someone feels would be appropriate. The meeting space is best for a group under 20. And again, we can be open for receptions of people if they're socially or spiritually conscious. And we do have a library, a good feminist library and women's issues libraries, which I like to encourage people to come even if they just want to browse. We have a lot of brochures and lots of other information. So the house is open during the week. And now, since there's 2 of us, it'll basically be open from about 10 to 6 every day. And or if you want to, you can call ahead and make an appointment to come in. And somebody who might want to give something back to the community, like self-defense, if you're a woman and you know self-defense, or if you're a woman and you want to teach Spanish to Anglo people, or if you wanted to develop something, there's the Peace House is available. Yes. And you could offer and give some of your talent and time back to the community too. And she did mention the need we do have is for someone who could teach a Spanish class for free. Or, well, we could fund them on a minimum scale. Because we had a lady who came by, had this dynamic intensive Spanish class, but one, it was too intensive for the type of people who usually come to the Peace House, because it required like 3 classes a week for about 4 hours. And most of the people who come to the Peace House are working women, and so they can give out maybe 2 hours once a week, or maybe 2 hours twice a week to 2 different activities, but that's the most you can expect on a consistent weekly basis. And so if someone out there does want to teach Spanish, it would be welcome, because we've had Spanish classes on and off at the Peace House. And our last Spanish teacher was very good, but she's moved out of the vicinity of Austin, so she can't come into town that often.
Or you could play music, get together and jam there, or just use it if you're in accordance and harmony with the principles of feminism and peace and giving. Tell us where it is exactly. Now, we try to get this information out to folks from all parts of Austin, south, east, west, northeast, northwest, everywhere. We try to break down the barriers of racism and cultural isolation, white supremacy, homophobia, all those things. We're trying to help be part of a new world. And yet, a lot of times, it seems like there are little pockets of African American people and Hispanic people live in East Austin, and white people won't go over there, and all the white yuppies live in Northwest Austin, and yet we are one people trying to create a different world here. So a lot of people don't even know where the Peace House is. So describe how you would to get there.
Okay, it's real easy. The address is 1305 East 1st Street. You can take the East 1st exit from IH-35, which is the only way. I don't know if you're coming further east. If you're coming further east, most people coming further east would know East 1st. But coming from IH-35, you would take the East 1st exit. Going east on 1st Street, it's about 3 or 4 blocks. The major cross street is Waller, W-A-L-L-E-R, and we're half a block east of Waller. And we have a nice, big, colorful sign on the front porch and a nice parking space, which would be, if you're going east, it would be on your right-hand side. And it does come up quite quickly, because when I didn't live on the east side, I used to ride past the house many times, and people ride past the house many times, because the house itself is a pretty dull, outstanding brown and brickish color. You can go right past it because the numbers go pretty quickly.
And if you go to Chacon, you've gone too far.
Right.
Turn around
Once
and
you
go
hit
back.
Chacon, you've passed the house. But we have a big, colorful sign there, which was done by Sheila Fawcett, which, if you're looking for that, you will not miss the sign.
Okay. So anything you want to say in closing about the Peace House?
Well, Genevieve Vaughn came up with this phrase, and we've been trying to do that, is that the Austin Women's Peace House is everybody's house. There's efforts now in women, feminists and other women, understanding that we can be strong, but we need the participation of everybody. And we want to have, that's why we've opened our doors up for specific youth programs, and we're dealing with youth on all levels. And we want to have men who are willing to come by and benefit from what women have to offer, particularly from the dialogues, because the participation by men in these type of exchanges are really important. So we want to make Austin Women's Peace House your house. You're welcome to come by 1305 East 1st Street, or to call 474-0730. Thank you.
All righty. Now, just say one thing personally. How do you like working there? Tell me about your changes in one sentence.
Oh, it's a challenge. Until Patty was hired, I was doing everything. That was PR, cleaning up, working with the children, coordinating. It was a lot of work, but it has its rewards, because you meet a lot of different people, you're getting to know the community, and you know you're doing a service.
Austin Women's Peace House. I think it's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, folks. This has been another edition of Let the People Speak, and we're thankful, grateful, and honored to have Bashira here, who is the coordinator for the Austin Women's Peace House. We thought we'd let you know about some of the activities going on over there. It's free, it's a gift, it's part of giving back something to the Mother Earth, something to our society, something good, spiritually and wonderful. And we hope you come by and you enjoy it and you take advantage of this. Thank you. Let the people speak. How'd it go?
That was better than the one.
Always be music. Oh yeah. There'll always be a song. There will always be music. Oh yeah. There'll always be a song. Oh yes. There'll always be music. Oh yeah. There'll always be a song.
bonita. Sí. Gracias. That's good. What, you cutting it out?
Yeah.
Well, you're not finished then, are you?
No, I just want to.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Peace House, where we're on the spot with some special students who are taking a part in a summer project here. I have one of the gentlemen that's been taking part in that project with me, and I'm going to ask him a few questions. First of all, let me ask you, what is your name, sir?
David Torres.
David, can you tell me a little bit about what's happening here at the Peace House this summer?
We've been drawing and stuff.
Oh, you've been drawing. Do you like art?
Mm-hmm.
What, can you just tell me, or in our viewing audience out there, a few words about your favorite kind of picture?
A Ninja Turtle.
Ninja Turtles, huh? Well, I understand that that's very popular with a lot of the kids, Ninja Turtles. Which one of the turtles is your particular?
Yeah, that's good.
That's
Okay.
good to do.
That's good.
It's
How you guys do? I want you to fold it up. See this one down here? You're gonna fold it up just like that. Just like that. Okay, you don't want y'all don't want to make it all the way like that. That's too much. Demasiado, como así?
this. How? I couldn't see it.
Yeah, that's good. A
I
little
can't
bit further up, Mia. Right, just a little bit further up like that. Okay.
I can't see it.
Okay, like this. See how you do it? Have it like this. And I want you to fold it up like that. There you go. All right.
This.
That's good.
Frank
You're
playing
going ahead
with
up.
you. Frank
That's
playing
good.
with you.
Yeah.
No, like this.
Okay. Este es poquito más como así. Okay? Okay.
Like this.
Yeah, that's good, Franklin. Excellent. Okay? Now you ready?
You ready?
Who
Yes.
told you could touch my scissors? Okay. Ready? Okay, now this is what we're going to do now. See this part right here? We're going to fold it up like this. See that part that you just folded? You're going to fold it all the way up. So it hits this, and you got a little pocket there.
I got a pocket.
You already have a pocket? Well, not in your pants. On the paper. Like this. Okay?
I know. I
Fold it all the way
meant
up
on
like
the
that.
paper.
Okay? Right there. There you go.
I meant on the paper.
Okay,
Like this.
Catherine, like this.
Like this.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, Nina. Okay, I'm gonna fold this up like this.
Ow.
I'm gonna start it. Can you fold the rest of it all the way down?
Look, Bashira,
There you go.
Bashira.
All the way over.
Look, Daddy. Look, Daddy.
Let me see. Entonces. Okay, that's good. Bien. Está bien. Okay, bien. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, now for you, it's going to be different because you want to do the hat, right? But for everybody else, I'll show you in a little bit. For everybody else, I want you to, see how you have this back? That's going to be the tail. Okay, this thing here. Okay, so you're going to fold it up like this. Just like this.
Up like that.
All the way up.
Are we gonna cut it? No.
You can cut it a little later. And you have to be careful when you cut it. Did everybody get that? That's really good. Okay, everybody understood that part, huh? Oops.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Omari. Mr. Omari is going to do a roll for me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you ready? Get down. All right, that's what a forward roll is. Now, Mr. Omari, come here and show them what a forward roll is once again.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Get down. That's a lateral right there, bro. Come on back and try it again.
My name is David Torres. Your name?
My name is Michelle Garcia.
What?
Put it by here.
Oh. Is your family nice, Armin?
They're wonderful.
How is your family?
They're nice, not weird like other families.
Will you get married when you grow up?
Yes.
How, will y'all have a child?
Yes.
Okay. Got another one. Oh. Will you be a grandma?
Of course. Everybody's gonna grow old someday.
No. Okay. Is today your only day to be on a show?
No. I've been in lots of shows. Like Arsenio, huh? It's better than your show.
What grade are you in?
Hi, my name is Patty Salas, and I'm a midwife for Partera, and I just got hired at the Peace House 2 weeks. This is like a week ago. And with my background, I'm hoping to do in the Peace House projects that are related to health. One, to do like a health reference library where people can have access to books ranging from any health topic to any other, and read about preventions, the nature of the sickness, or why they've gotten it, treatments, the advantages and the disadvantages of various treatments, and some home remedies for minor ailments. Another thing I want to do is just make the house really a part of the community, and have people be using it on a more regular basis for things that they would like to do, making tamales or making quilts, and letting them have that access to do different projects. My original plan when I came back was wanting to work with teenagers, because as a midwife working in a clinic in El Paso, that was my favorite group or age group to work with, and they always asked for me to do their appointments or to do their births, and just because they're easier to play around with. You can joke around with them, lighten things up, but also do education, and they really appreciate the learning in that kind of way. So I wanted to work with teenagers when I came back, and I've been just asking around different agencies and people that are already working with youth, where they feel there's a need, or if there. I started out kind of is there a need, and then I sort of decided, well, the Peace House would be a nice place for teenagers to come, also females, and just do rap sessions. So that's gonna be happening too.
Ever since this hair was pequeño dolor sembrado para